Good evening and welcome to the Facilities Usage and Planning Subcommittee meeting here at the Brockton High School Little Theater. Today is Tuesday, June 27th, 2023. The time is 5:35. I'd like to call the meeting to order and establish a quorum. Mrs. Ehlers?
Here.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Here.
Ms. Asak?
Here.
And I'm here, Jared Homer. Okay, the second item on our agenda tonight is a presentation from the Boys and Girls Club regarding the property easement at the Keith Field.
Good evening, committee members. You should be receiving materials before we get started. Happy to send this along digitally if you want it after tonight's presentation. Just wasn't sure what your AV capabilities here were. Good evening. My name is Derek Heim. I am the president and CEO of the Boys and Girls Club of Metro South. We are headquartered in Taunton, Massachusetts, with locations here in the city of Brockton, as well as Taunton and several other southeastern Massachusetts communities, serving about 2,500 kids annually, and a little over 500 a day at our 233 Warren Avenue building in Brockton here. With me tonight is attorney Anthony Savastano, who represents the Boys and Girls Club of Metro South. For the purpose of tonight's presentation, I'll be sort of going through most of the materials with you. As stated on your agenda this evening, we're here to discuss a required easement that is required under the conditions of an ENA that we are currently negotiating with the city of Brockton. Many of you hopefully are aware we were the successful bidder of that RFP that was released in the city in regards to the portion of Keith Field that this committee, well, your school committee, declared as surplus a little while ago. Tonight, my purpose really is to go through what we're looking to do on the Eldon B. Keith Field portion that was declared as surplus. And then additionally, I have other plans to sort of begin the discussion regarding the easement and hopefully get to some discussion in regards to that. If you're not familiar with our organization, we've been in the city for quite a long time. Your superintendent at one time was an employee of the Boys and Girls Club of Boys and Girls Club of Brockton at the time. We are a youth-serving organization here in the city. Currently have a wait list for Brockton students of 452 as today to get into our building for services. And frankly, we are out of room. We have been operating in the old Armory building for years that was gifted to the club from the city. And we are really at capacity. For the purpose of our first part of the discussion, on your left-hand side of the packet, you should see our Building Better Together campaign materials. That is an overview of the project that we've been really visioning for several years. We were blessed during the pandemic to have a lead funder come forward to our organization with a commitment towards helping us achieve our goal of expansion in Brockton. At that time, we were looking for all available parcels of land in the city to move our efforts forward. And at that time, the Eldon B. Keith parcel became declared surplus by your committee and put out to RFP. You'll notice in this packet, obviously, we talk a lot about our organization and what we're doing, but I'd like to reserve the time to really talk about sort of our vision. We are looking to expand to build somewhere between a 30 and 40,000 square foot facility, ideally adjacent or in the near vicinity of our current building. As you can imagine, running schools, that having buildings in close proximity is quite important for several reasons, thus why the Eldon B. Keith parcel is so attractive to us. We estimate currently, based on today's construction costs, that this project will cost us between $11 and $12 million at an average rate of $300 per square foot to build. I'm arguing with architects that that's probably not quite accurate. It's probably more than that at this time. But as many of you are aware, we've been visioning this for quite a while. At this current time, we have about half of the funds raised to move this project forward. This will require a heavy community emphasis to build this complete build-out of this facility, and will require us to raise the additional 50% of the funding. With that said, I also just, as a caveat for all of you, if you're not familiar with the nonprofit sector, we raise all of our money to operate as well as do capital projects. We will not put a shovel in the ground till we're 75% of the way of fundraising. And we have estimated right now $3 to $4 million on the line in regards to this project, in addition to the $5 million gift that was made pre-pandemic. Our goal is simply to expand our services, build this 40,000 square foot facility with a strong emphasis on childcare. This facility will house an additional 78 licensed childcare spots on top of our 52 licensed spots, as well as be able to absorb an additional 300 kids into the building once a ribbon is cut. Our current building on Warren Avenue will be strictly for teens, serving youth 13 to 18 years of old. Our largest growing population right now in care is teenagers. We see about 150 teens per day. And in the summertime, we are open all the way till almost 10:30 in the evening, and we are servicing right now about 150 kids in that program. And then during our camp day, we bus 250 to 300 to our property in Taunton, Camp Riverside, which is our 45-acre summer camp. So this is simply an effort for us to grow and expand our property and our ability to serve more kids. If you're not familiar with the building on Warren Avenue, the parking lot that is between the church and the Boys and Girls Club is not owned by the Boys and Girls Club. We have a long-term lease agreement with the church and work closely with them as partners for parking, but parking is additionally a major concern for our organization as we continue to grow. We also realize that that's a highly utilized field by the city of Brockton and the several residents and kids that use it for Pop Warner football and other activities, but we think we can complement nicely to the landscape of that area in addition to the new public safety complex that is being proposed by the city, and really invigorate that whole downtown area that we currently serve. Tonight, and as you listed on your agenda, the purpose is in the ENA that was written by the city, the successful bidder must negotiate an easement with the school committee. Because that property is school committee controlled, we're here tonight to discuss that. From a Boys and Girls Club perspective, we're interested to move our project forward. We have no preconceived notions that this committee or this subcommittee has any, necessarily reasons why we shouldn't be there, but we obviously would like to hear if that is the feeling, but additionally try to get to some sort of discussion in regards to the easement. You'll notice in our renderings that are in your packet on the right, we initially designed the idea of the entrance to the new facility through the Eagles that are located on West Elm Street. We did that only from the spectrum that this facility, this parcel of land, if it does not have an easement, is essentially landlocked. We have no access or way to access this property through our own property because we do not own that parking lot, and we have an easement from that church off of West Elm Street to enter the back entrance of that property, if you're familiar. So tonight, we're proposing in this packet a new designed entrance through the Eagles that are located on West Elm Street, understanding that that was not part of the land that was declared surplus, thus the discussion for the easement before us. The reason we chose that location potentially was clearly for traffic control and sight lines. There is a natural intersection right there that aligns with the street directly across. We envision or imagine that the city of Brockton will probably be doing some sort of improvements of that intersection once the public safety complex is designed, and obviously not trying to inhibit any portions of traffic flow in and out of the facility. Additionally, we thought it would be a wonderful way to continue to preserve those entrances and those wonderful gates that are on West Elm Street, to provide another visual appeal for the city in the downtown area. With that all said, we come to you tonight with other options. I have a separate set of plans here that I'm happy to share. We're open to discussions of where an easement could go. Our biggest push from the Boys and Girls Club is to get a shovel in the ground and serve the excess of 400 kids that are on a waiting list that are all Brockton Public School kids, and get them in our building. So we're open to negotiations, discussions, not even really negotiations. We're willing to accept what you want to happen. We're just hoping to move the process along so that we can continue our efforts to raise the necessary funds and eventually break ground on this building. So I'll pause there and field any questions, I guess, or I can share these other plans if you'd like to see those. Surely. You'll notice on this set of plans is the same rendering going through the eagles. The second page behind it is the actual CAD drawing of the easements. The last page would be an alternative. Do you want the questions to go through the chair, or do you want me to just answer questions?
Mr. Homer.
So, do any of the members have any questions? Ms. Asak, please.
Thank you for the presentation. I think it's a wonderful idea. This is something we need for our students and our families. So I do support having a building there for the kids of Brockton. The only thing is for 99 years, almost 100 years, we've had these eagles there. My biggest concern is when we carved out that piece of land, we carved it out that entrance is going to stay preserved. So how does it look compared to what we originally had put out for the RFP as far as the piece of land that was carved out and how it's carved out now with the eagles? Do we have a copy of the original and then what you guys are carving out now? Because the original entrance was not where the eagles are. It was next to the eagles. We had that entrance. And the other concern is I know when you leave the Arnone School, you can only take a right unless you go all the way up to the Arnone School, to the entrance, then you can take a right or a left. Are we gonna run into a zoning issue where you're right at the light at West Elm Street, and are you gonna be able to, I see that you have two-way traffic here. So rather than put a lot of time into this, is this something that the zoning has already approved, or Traffic Commission has already approved, the two-way traffic? Are you able to leave from this entrance and take a right? Is it a right turn only? Or can you take a right or a left where you're right there? My third comment is I know with the new safety building, I thought the street was gonna get widened a little to help with not having to go where the eagles are. So you will have, for emergency vehicles, you will have that space to have them go in there. So I know I threw a lot of questions at you at one time. It's a great idea. I think it's going to be beautiful. This is going to be wonderful for our families, especially the kids of Brockton, but we got to preserve the history. And I know that there's a waterway of some sorts under here from when I looked at it years ago. So a lot of traffic. I mean, we did have a sinkhole right around the corner from there, not within walking distance, across from, from the old courthouse. So again, a lot of traffic over that waterway. Is it going to cause issues that we haven't had to deal with for over 100 years? But when you have vehicles constantly going back and forth over there, again, I vaguely remember, I don't have the map with me, but I know there was a waterway that goes under right where the eagles are pretty much. Yeah, so again, those are things that I just don't want to, revisit this, have you put all this work into it, and then all of a sudden we run into other issues. So I'd rather address them now. These look beautiful, but it's been almost 100 years, and is this the only entrance you can use having those eagles?
So I'm going to try to answer all your questions. So, and not in the order you asked.
Sure.
So let's talk about the culvert. So you're referring to the culvert that's located under the Keith Field. We have done exploratory work on that and determined the culvert location. You'll notice that on the second page in your packet on these the designs. That is to scale. That was done by Beals and Thomas, who is the engineer who also laid out this portion of land for your school committee. So that culvert, and yes, it did have a sink a few years ago in front of the senior housing. It lines up with that. You'll see the very portion of the culvert that would be located under the parking area is the only area of concern that the club has from our initial investigation. And it would require us to spend money to make sure that culvert is reinforced to be able to put traffic on top of it. In regards to, is there other ways to get in? If you notice on that same design, when the school committee declared this surplus, there was no easement or entrance granted. So if you see this dotted line that runs along West Elm Street, there's grass in between West Elm and the dotted line. You did not declare that as surplus. So in essence, without an easement, unless we had a different way in, this piece of land is landlocked.
I thought there was a piece of land next to the parking where the church's parking was. I thought that's where the original entrance we had.
So if I can take that one
Sure,
step further
yeah.
for you.
It was next to their parking. Again, it's been years, you know.
So we have a roughly a 50-foot strip between our building and the first set of parking spaces that the church owns. It's an easement that we have with the church. We do not own that easement. We don't own the parking lot. But to take it one step further, in preparation for sort of turning every rock over, about a month and a half ago, we met with the church and requested an easement through their property from them. And we were denied that by them. They were not interested in that easement. We offered to improve their parking area, improve the entrance for their church. They were not interested.
Can you take me over to, when you were just talking about the other entrances, that, if you flip it over, coming in by the school side?
So we do not have any property that comes in by the Arnone school side.
Dotted line, is that what you suggested was maybe the other way in?
If you look at the Arnone, so are you looking at the Arnone parking area?
Yeah,
So
I'm looking at the second page.
could we potentially enter through the Arnone parking area?
Go to the right of that. So if you see the parking lot, see those dotted lines? coming
That
out?
represents the stream.
Okay.
That's the stream that's under, the culvert dumps into that stream, and that's that access of water that comes out. If you're referencing, could we enter in through the Arnone parking lot? I don't know. Is that that may be a discussion with this group? I don't know. We're trying to be creative, but I want you to know we've unturned every rock to try to get something to work here.
So if, was it explored that if you're looking from the top view down at West Elm Street, come in to the parking lot where the Eagles are, you could go more left?
We can. That's the third plan. That's in that large scale prints. That was the third page. We had Beals and Thomas do an entrance to the left of the Eagles if you're looking at the Eagles. The only hesitation we had with that goes back to the ref comments that Ms. Azak made. What happens when we go to zoning and permitting? Are they going to allow that? Because of the new public safety building, is that going to be an issue? To answer that question, we have not gone to permitting and zoning because the ENA has been written that we need to successfully negotiate the terms of the ENA, which we are wrapping up with the city, and negotiate this easement. Once we have a signed ENA and this negotiation's underway, we can go for zoning and permitting. So we have all our ducks in a row. I can assure you Beals and Thomas have done all the permitting necessary and all the plans that are necessary for that. We just have not started the process because the city has told us the ENA needs to be fully executed.
Mr. Mello.
Oh, thank you. The alternative plan on page 3, would that call for the creation of a new curb cut? And
It
would it
would.
require the removal of any portion of the wrought iron fence?
Yes, it would.
Okay.
Additionally, we're talking two separate easements here. We need a traffic and passing easement as well as a utility easement. So I'm assuming with the new public safety complex, and I'm assuming the utilities will be fully up to snuff on West Elm Street, but a utility easement will also be necessary because we've unturned every rock to determine could we get the utilities off of our current building, and we do not have substantial utilities there to get that done.
Sorry, Jared.
Sorry, to make my
It's
notes.
okay.
Yes, Mr. Asak, please.
So I'm just thinking of the unknown side of where unknown schools parking is. I just know that there's so many restrictions as far as how you can turn, and I can pretty much see that happening here, especially here where you don't have as much room to turn out. So to do that as a two-way traffic, only way in, only way out, I'd be curious to see what zoning would say about. I know we can't go before zoning. You can't go just yet, but where we have those restrictions on the other side, you know, you're right at a light. You're right at the light, and that's the only way you can go in to the parking. That's the only way you can come out of the parking. And I know someone had mentioned, have you explored looking at a different entrance, maybe from the unknown school side, facing like Rockland Trust, facing the courthouse? I know that there's
There's
a waterway over there. Yeah, there is a
The
stream.
water's tight there.
Yeah, we have looked at that. We did not propose it as an option because our Beals and Thomas said it would be highly challenging to be able to get it in.
So
And that actually you'd be using the same entrance to
Right,
the
as your
parking
own
lot. There's
school.
really not enough room on the left, because when you come into the unknown school in the parking lot, it's only maybe 10 feet, and that brook is right there, and I think you have to have so much setback. So that same road used for coming into the unknown would be the road you would have to use for the easement.
Superintendent, how
There,
many?
can I ask you about, like, these currently through the Eagles, is that
The
that
only,
the current space, or they have to be moved?
it's pretty darn close. So the Eagles would not have to be moved. The structure would stay in place. They've shown in those renderings the sidewalks redone and improving the wrought iron fence. And the Boys and Girls Club is prepared that if that was something that the school committee would wish, that, look, you want to retain the Eagles, but you want everything beautified and made nicer and brought to a different spec, that's on our cost. We realize that is a part of that, and I hear the history part. We went about this that we have no intention of moving those pillars or those eagles. What would need to be moved, if you're familiar with the entrance, there's some bollards that prevent cars from actually entering in there now. Those would have to be removed. But Beals and Thomas laid this out that they can get the entrance, two-way traffic in and out through the eagle pillars that are currently there.
I'm looking at the photo online, the actual photo. I didn't realize it was that wide enough to be able to get vehicles in and out of there. So how does that alter what we like? We carved it out. I know we carved out the lot, and this is what we needed to have it as a field. So with this being, the line being moved, Superintendent, like, it's hard to see it without looking at the what we put out for the RFP and then seeing this. It's hard to compare it. Like, how did the line move, and how do we see where the line is right now?
That is referenced. So on the second page, it's the hashed line that runs along the new parking lot and a diagonal hash line that runs across the front of West Elm. Do you see that triangle that is not, that's grass and the new entrance? That was not in your original declaration of surplus. Am I explaining it well enough? So if you're looking at this, you're looking at the large prints, that's fine. It's on the Beals and Thomas diagrams, it's pretty darn accurate. The hashed line indicates what you declared as surplus.
Which page is that, sir?
Either page 2 in the small print or the first page in the large print. but in the large.
So if you, so basically, if you see this, where it says stop, to the left, that hash line there,
That's
has the
correct.
arrows.
The diamond that is sort of cut out between West Elm Street and our new parking lot proposed, you did not declare that surplus. So we need an easement regardless because this is landlocked or this project doesn't work for us to construct a building.
So I have a question. So I'm not sure if you know, I'm Dr. Cobb's Deputy Superintendent of Operations. So to maybe address some of the questions for School Committee Member Joey Sazak, have you considered the easement? We talked about going through from the unknown side. You can go into the parking lot and make it a one-way traffic flow into the parking lot. And when you come out on the West Elm side, only take a left turn. So that way you don't jam the intersection at the light and you can have a traffic flow through.
We did not explore that only because the entrance through the unknown, we haven't heard from this body that it was
but
even an option.
You take up less space if you, instead of trying to make it a double lane, you have a single lane all the way through, and you have less easement space, and it's easier to work that way. I think it's something you
With
can
that
take a
said,
look at.
Dr. Cobbs, we're happy to go back to work.
But it
and-
might
and
make,
come up
make
with
this
other
project easier
alternatives.
without taking up more space and moving anything except for the bollards.
But I'm assuming, and I'm not the attorney, but that would require probably two easements because you would be getting an easement on both sides of that property.
Mr.
And there's
Rodriguez.
already an entrance from the unknown side, and again, you go around, but they can go one way in and through, and
Understood.
it might make the project a little more feasible.
What is, I apologize. What-
Tony, you good? Mr. Rodriguez? Okay, I don't know which one is yielded back. Let me find out though.
You don't have to double wire the entrance from to the Eagles.
You could probably use the entrance side. I apologize, Mr. Rodriguez. What was the size of the lot that we deemed surplus? Was it 70-some-odd thousand square feet, which is a little over an acre?
Yeah, I'm looking for the exact.
Well, actually, more than a little over an acre, about an acre and a half. Was it 70,000 square feet?
1.25 acres.
Yeah,
I
it was
believe.
1 point something, 1.25,
1.26,
1.26, something
right
like
there.
So
that.
if we move this, is this going to affect what we carved out already as a field that we're
That's what I
going
was
to
going to
need?
ask for, Peter. Now, can the body grant an easement, or do they have to put that piece back out to bid again?
So a portion of the property that was not declared surplus, I don't think you need to declare surplus
Okay.
property in order to have an easement run over it. As I'm sitting here, I don't think that's the case. By the way, one other quick question I had, I don't want to take any time away from Tony, but the alternative, you mentioned it would require the creation of a curb cut. Are there any public shade trees over there? I see some trees depicted.
There are some trees that would have to come down.
So are they, so public shade trees that would, are they of any historical significance? or-
They're not historical significance, but some of them are pretty massive. They're big trees. They've been there a long time. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the church, and the backstop to the baseball field used to be right there.
Yep.
Those trees, I'm sure, provided shade to the ball field, but some of them are very large trees.
And they would have to be removed entirely as opposed to
To be
trimmed
able to
or-
get
yeah.
that third option to work, yes.
Got it, okay, thanks.
Hi, Anthony Savastano. Just on the easement issue and the surplus, we're not looking for an exclusive easement. We're looking for a non-exclusive access and utilities easement. So in my opinion, it would not need to be determined or defined as surplus and put out to bid, because it would be a non-exclusive easement. We would still be, the school committee would still have access over that property as well.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Thank you. As one of the original Boys and Girls Club, was it 89, 90?
Yeah, 89.
I was one of the first ones in there. I was in the building while they were doing the basketball
Still good,
courts
yeah.
over, so
Cool.
that's how far back it goes. So on the Warren Ave side, facing the existing building, to the left where there's a little park area. So that area is not wide enough to actually do an entrance or a driveway. I just
So
don't
the
understand.
park area that's to the, if you're looking at our building to the left of the building?
Yes.
It's registered parkland, so it would never, it's not allowed to come out of registered parkland. It was registered by the city, so we looked at that as an option. We went to the mayor's office, it is registered parkland. It would take quite a lot of work to get it out of registered parkland.
Okay. And you're not looking to utilize the existing parking lot on the Belmont side for the Arnone School? Or is that another option that you guys
Well, I
wanna
think that's what
explore?
Dr. Cobbs was suggesting, or no?
Not to
But
use
make
the
it-
parking space, but
right.
go lane through the parking space, 'cause you still have to turn around for the school, but you could go straight to the Boys and Girls Club parking lot.
The proposed parking lot that we're planning here is more than enough ample parking for what we need for our employees. And most of our parent traffic and parking is in a 1.5 hour time window when they're coming out of work and picking up.
And then page 2 on the big plans here, no matter what, you still need an easement from
sir.
us right there, so.
Yes, sir.
So, just to, why wouldn't, I mean, I understand, like, it'd be much beautiful if it was through the pillars, but why wouldn't this be your first option, with the parking, with the entrance on the, Elm Street side?
Are you talking about the third option that we presented that was past the Eagles up a bit?
Yeah,
The only reason, and I will tell you frankly why our board of directors is a bit concerned about that, we don't know if we're going to go to zoning and permitting and get denied because we'll be altering the traffic on West Elm Street with the new public safety complex. Because now you're adding 2 entrances and exits onto West Elm Street. Arguably 1, because we're not going to use the one through the pillars, right? But it's lined, the one through with the pillars, if you stand at the pillars, it is lined up directly across the street with the intersection. So we are concerned, we are willing to go do our work to get that entrance past the Eagles. We just are going to ask that hopefully if the school committee agrees to an easement, you're going to help us in that discussion with city officials, because if they say no, we're going to be right back here asking for an additional easement, because we're just concerned we're not going to get it due to permitting.
so, I mean, you know the history of this park. It's not just the history of just those eagles, but actually those stones that are, strategically placed in the design. So to me, it's that I have to, preserve as much as possible history that's attached to this field. We're all in support of this project. We know the city needs this. We are not against this. We want to see this happen. So that's why we're here. We want to make sure that this body protects as much history as possible, because this was donated, from the family to the school committee. So if we were to say we're going to preserve everything, we would have never brought this to a surplus. But, I'm just one person, but I would like for you to kind of explore more of the third option of moving it past the Eagles.
And we're fully willing and ready to do that. Just going to be looking for the support of this body if you grant that easement, that we can then work with city officials to get the necessary zoning and permitting. We were concerned, would police and fire challenge us on that entrance because of turnaround? I can't answer those questions. We're all just assuming, but we're willing to go to work and do our best effort to make that happen if that's what this body would like.
So looking at the third option, so on that back end, that's where the entrance is to the back of the church. So
No. The back of the church has their own entrance. It would be sort of, if you're looking, standing on.
between that and the Eagles.
In between that and the Eagles.
Because the church won't let them use that. They won't grant an
No,
easement.
I know the area very well. There's a driveway that goes up. So they wouldn't even let you guys, like,
We attempt,
one big,
we explored that option.
Jesus.
And the only thing about going back to going through the unknown, but if you did do a road through the, pass-through road, now you're cutting off some of the field. Because if you look,
That was the other concern
you would
Beals and
cut off
Thomas
a good
brought up.
chunk of the field, because if you look at, and I think it's the second page on the small drawing, you look at the unknown parking lot,
Yeah.
if you're coming in, there's not enough room between the road. You can't go more right because of the water. So if you stay left and just keep that road straight ahead, now you're gonna end up cutting some of the field off.
The only other thing that and I'm happy to answer as many questions, and I appreciate the history, and please, the Boys and Girls Club is not looking to disturb history in the city of Brockton. What I am prepared to say is if there were improvements, including making those eagles, clean them up, make them look better, whatever the committee wishes, we're willing to do that at our cost to beautify that entrance to whatever you'd like it to look like. So when we sat down as a group and we looked at this, we said, boy, we could also potentially enhance it for the city of Brockton. And we're prepared to spend the money necessary to do that if that's a wish. Again, I'm happy to go to work on any of these options.
Peter, can I suggest that before they start working on other options, that we do a site visit? We post a site visit with them to kind of see,
Yeah, that's an excellent idea.
so we can actually just get our bearings straight, actually physically, and see it. So
It's
we-
tough to vision it without
No,
being
and then we can
there.
count off, like, how much room, like, how much is it moving closer to the, and maybe, I don't know, maybe would it be okay to have somebody there from zoning or traffic to look with us, or is that out of line?
No, I think that's appropriate. I don't see
Yeah, it'd
anything
be
wrong with
helpful
that.
to have people.
think that would make sense.
Because I know there's a traffic study going on. I don't know if it's finished or not. There's a traffic study going on for the new public safety building, but if we can get somebody that's involved in that at a deep level to really kind of know what they're thinking about for the traffic pattern around the new, if we can have somebody from that group, I don't know if that must be somebody from zoning, to join us all to kind of, I'm just going,
I mean, Rob's been involved in this process. I'd also invite Beals and Thomas to be there.
Yeah, I would
They've done
have-
the
yeah,
layout.
we've worked
They
with him.
understand the property better than I do as far as what will fit and what won't fit.
Yep, I know, I think
But
that's.
I would have
that's
somebody
an
from
excellent
zoning.
idea.
I know Rob, I mean, he's, works on planning, but I would have somebody that's actually deep into the work about looking at the traffic pattern for the new public safety building.
That is part of the public safety study, that we're still looking at making a two-way traffic flow
Right,
through
right.
there.
So I
So
think
there's
it's important to have
quite
somebody that's on that committee
study.
join us to kind of give us what their initial vision is. For the- So we have an understanding on,
Or even traffic commission.
Right.
Like, Chief Galligan, he's, very, very well informed. Because, I mean, it's something that's going to end up going before them. Why keep spinning our wheels? I mean, this is wonderful. We need to, get through this and, get the building going for our families. And I'm not trying to be difficult, but I need to preserve, like Mr. Rodriguez, we have to preserve the history, because in the deed, it stated that we, the school committee, are going to oversee this for life. And, Eldon B. Keith passed away at a very young age. He served on the school committee, passed away, I think, at 42. But the whole purpose of it and the purpose of the Eagles is the Eldon B. Keith Field was created for the youth of Brockton. Its guardian pair of eagles are a fitting symbol of a man who served his country with pride and the young people of his city with dedication. So it's wonderful to have the Boys and Girls Club next to this field, where it meant so much for the family to donate it to the schools. So doing the site visit, let's just do what we can, get it expedited, just so you can start the process, instead of just us guessing, like, what can you do, what can't you do? But I just know with the unknown, they're very strict. So I just don't want to have us vote on something, then all of a sudden we're back again.
Right.
So it just makes more sense before traffic and zoning. Just reach out to the experts and see, what do we need to do? That way you can break ground.
We'd be more than happy to continue the discussion, have the site visit, talk through that. Obviously, we're looking to move the project along. Every day we wait, the cost, and I'm preaching to the choir here, the costs go up every day. And we believe that this project is going to be a game changer for this community, and particularly the families that are waiting to get in. I can't tell you how many calls we take a week from Brockton families who need a placement and a place to be, and we have to turn them away. And we have records that prove this, show this. There's no reason why we're here, because we desperately need to grow.
And just a practical suggestion, to the extent it's possible, if the area in question could be depicted somehow with chalk or some kind of, lining to depict exactly where.
Yeah, we can have.
We could have Beals and Thomas flag it.
Yeah, we can have.
Flag
them
it, yeah,
covered, yep.
perfect.
Ms. Asek.
Sorry, one last question. So right now, you just use one entrance as entrance and exit. Could that be widened? I know there's a little park right there.
Are you referencing our entrance off of Warren Avenue?
Yes.
So the Warren Avenue entrance that we have an easement with the church. We do not control that parcel of property between our building
Oh, okay.
and the church.
I thought it was on West Elm, so it's the Warren Ave that you have the easement.
We have one on both.
Okay.
Technically, the one on West Elm, we don't have anything on. But the church has an agreement with us that we can use it to enter and exit the building.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other members have any questions? Mr. Rodriguez.
Once this project is complete, because I know it's going to happen, what's your plans for the existing building? Like, what do you plan on doing with that property?
So the purpose of the new building will be to house our 5 to 12-year-old kids. The new building will be completely renovated and upgraded for teens, so 13 to 18-year-olds in that building. If you noticed in these plans, there's a half gym designed in the new building. We need a full gym for our teenagers. That building will remain for teens and be programmed for that purpose. The new building will cater to the younger age group. So we have no intentions to leave the Warren Avenue building at all. If you're not familiar, we have a reversionary clause with the city of Brockton. If we ever vacate that building goes back to the city. We have no intentions to leave that building.
Okay. Now, why don't I see? This is like a outside basketball court or a play area. You are the
Because
Boys
this
and Girls Club,
parcel
and you
won't,
cater.
it will
won't
not fit it.
Thank you.
There's a small little play area you'll see on the back side, but when I say play area, this is for our kids that are in licensed childcare. It's going to be very small. We've talked about ideas of, a playground. We have a donor that would love to put a playground, but the Beals and Thomas and our architects cannot figure out how to fit anything more in than what is here. Because we can't alter the city's going to require so many parking spots. This has all been spec'd out to what the city's going to require for parking, building size that we need. I can assure you the day we open this building, it's going to be too small.
Are there any other questions?
So Peter, will you be the one that schedules this for us and make sure we have everything properly posted?
Yep, yeah, I'm happy to do. I think it makes sense to post it as a.
Yeah,
an open
absolutely.
meeting too, and so you can.
Would
have
you,
free-
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm happy to coordinate that.
Would you like us to coordinate with Beals and Thomas to have that work flat, to have the field flagged? And then whose bet? Do you want me to try to contact traffic?
No, it's probably best for us. Yeah, Dr. Cobbs could do that, traffic, and whoever's part of that. Yeah, and whoever else is part of the actually planning of the public safety building, the traffic.
We expect that the mayor will have the ENA executed we're being told by end of business tomorrow, which will give us the green light to tell Beals and Thomas to do work on that land. We cannot do anything until that is signed by the mayor, but we will quickly make that happen once that document is signed.
One other quick thing, Jared, if I could.
Yeah.
Excuse me. With respect to the alternative whereby you'd create a new curb cut, have your traffic professionals identified any concerns about the proximity of that new curb cut to the driveway that runs behind?
Church.
Right. Is that, I mean, more of an engineering question than a,
Yeah, I think that's going to be what the city says. That's our biggest concern with that alternative entrance on the other side of the Eagles. Is the city going to be okay with it? And if they are, great.
does that concern also exist with respect to the location of a driveway through the Eagles? Is that technically too close to that driveway as well, or?
I can't necessarily answer that question from a perspective of flow of traffic, just being an average guy. I think lining up with an intersection is going to make more sense. You know, in my political position in the town in which I live, I can tell you how we would go about it, but I don't know how the city of Brockton would do it.
And the only other thing I wanted to, just a practical suggestion that's subject to everyone's thoughts, but would it be possible to produce a rendering of the alternative plan? Because this is very aesthetically pleasing what you've done with respect to the proposed access through the Eagles. Is it possible to have
Absolutely.
the same kind of shaded schematic site plan prepared with respect to the alternative?
Absolutely. I can ask our architect to work on that.
Ms. Asek.
Thank you for the printed copy. Is there something you can email us?
Absolutely.
I'll admit, I'm like trying to blow it up, take photos of it, so
Should
I'm
I
having a
direct
hard
that to the
time.
superintendent?
Sure.
You can email it to me. yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, just so we can take a look at it and just really look at things. And then, like I said, it's a beautiful plan. We're very lucky to have this come to our city. We just have to work this out and make sure that we get it done with traffic and with zoning. So thank you so much.
Understood.
Thank
Thank
for
you.
your time. Thank you. All right, so item 3 on our agenda is other business. Do any other members propose any other business for the committee for this evening? Ms. Asek.
Yes, so I know we had toured a building, the Perkins Building. Do we have enough time? Our lease is up. Do we have enough time, Dr. Cobbs, or should we try to ask for, some extension? It just, we have a lot going on.
I think he did, didn't he?
There's just a lot of stuff in that building.
Did you ask for an extension at Perkins?
Perkins Warehouse?
Yes.
I asked them today, if we can go much by month.
It's just to allow our facilities department, it's just, we have a lot that's there for storage. Okay, so I just wanted to make sure, because I toured it, and I just wanted to make sure we had time.
Now we do.
Now we
Can
do.
we, Peter, would it be appropriate for this committee to make a motion to ask the city to start moving on a new bus depot location option? I don't know how we should formally ask them to do that. I don't know, I'm not a member, but I'm just putting it
Yeah,
out there.
right.
Maybe I think it's,
It's probably.
I don't want this to keep lingering out. Obviously, the place we brought forward, they were not going to pass and accept, but we still have the issue of leasing a property and like to move forward. So I don't know how, would it be a motion? I just think because we know how these things, they fall to the back burner, and then here we are, and I think it's incumbent upon them to find us a suitable location. We can provide them options and how they, I don't know.
Yeah, no, that
I don't
makes
know what the
sense.
rest-
And
I don't know what the committee members think, or what,
Oh,
I
absolutely.
just don't want it to be like, keep lingering out there.
And maybe if, as a belt and suspenders measure, you want to subject it to the vote of the full committee as well, I don't have a problem with that.
So we have a school committee meeting scheduled on, is it July 11th, I believe, is that right? And would it be prudent for us to ask for maybe to reconvene our subcommittee before that meeting so we can be together and maybe get some responses from them. We can discuss that. We should maybe share those details at the school committee meeting give an update to all the members. Mr. Rodriguez?
Now, are we just requesting to search for a property, or do we have that property already
We've identified,
selected?
it's a good question. If we identified a property already that we think can suit our needs for everything, including a warehouse, how would we,
Would that
have
be
a
an
legal-
executive?
would we do that legally?
Propose an executive session to discuss leases for new property?
Yeah, let me look at that. That you can invoke, there is a purpose 6 under the open meeting laws, one of the bases upon which a public body can meet in executive session, and that encompasses, considering the value of property or lease terms, if a discussion would have, in an open meeting, would have a detrimental impact on the body's negotiating position, that could be a basis. I mean, I'm just hearing about this,
I'm
speaking
sorry, it
expen-
just-
Oh, yeah,
I put it
no.
on the agenda, but
Yeah.
when a new business came up, I'm like, we have to get moving
Yep.
on finding us a location, and like, Ms. Azak said, I mean, part of our issue is we had to take this lease at Perkins Ave because
Mm-hmm.
we just don't have enough storage space, so we'd like to find a location that will fit everything, so we're not in 3-4 different locations, so
Yep.
we have a bus depot, facilities department, technology department, and the warehouse all in one spot. So we have like a full operations building that houses all that. So I just, like, how do we then get us moving? Because I don't want to go back to the committee with an option and then say that's not going to work, and we go
Right.
back again
Yep.
and again. We want to come to
Yep.
agreement that we are presenting a property that
Yep, yep.
we all can agree on suits the needs of everything we need.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and it can be context and circumstance specific, whether it's appropriate to invoke purpose 6 in any, it's not necessarily a one-size-fits-all thing. It kind of depends on the circumstances with which you're dealing. So I'll take a look at it, but it sounds, based on what I'm hearing, I don't have any compunction about that concept, looking at it and maybe setting up an executive session to discuss that.
So would this body have to make a referral to the full school committee for the 11th?
I don't think, I'm not aware of any formal, specific requirement to that effect. If you want to do that, belt and suspenders, I don't think it's prohibited, but I think the committee could take it up on its own unilaterally, but,
Refer it to a full committee in executive session?
Into new business?
yeah, and in the
We can do that in new
meantime,
business,
I'll get a
okay.
little more background on what we're dealing with, and we can gauge whether an executive session is appropriate, and if it is, we'll go in that direction. If we have a contrary determination, we can revisit it, but I think that makes sense.
Now, do we want to schedule a facilities sub-meeting on the 11th as well?
That's what I'd recommended maybe we could try and meet before we have our regular meeting. Is this 6 o'clock time? Is that what we had for the 11th? I think I had 6 on my calendar. I don't know if this group could meet at 5:30 again before that, or if that's not enough time, if we need to go.
Or
Five.
5?
Five
But I
or-
also, if we can also add, if we can bring in the engineers that designed all of our turf fields, because we spent substantial amount of money on these designs. We need to take that up. We were in front of the council a few months ago. This body needs to take a vote and request what we want, and make that proposal to the mayor's office to see if we can move this forward.
Okay, so July 11th, 5 p.m., and we'll include
That's Jonathan.
that agenda item as well, too, right? To invite the engineers. Consider space. Okay. All right. Any other business before the subcommittee, or are we ready to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
A motion to adjourn made by Mr. Rodriguez, seconded by Ms. Asak. All in favor? And that is approved unanimously, and we are adjourned. Thank you.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us. My name is Kathleen Ehlers, and today is Tuesday, June 27th, and it being a little bit later than expected, 6:35, I'd like to open this meeting and establish a quorum. So, Ms. Azak?
Here.
Mr. Homer?
Here.
Ms. Rivas Mendez?
Here.
Mr. Rodriguez? Ms. Sullivan?
Yeah.
And Mr. Sullivan. Tim, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Go ahead.
I'm just establishing a quorum, so I'm asking if you can hear me.
Yes, I can.
Okay.
I'm here.
Thank you. So let's begin with the first item on the agenda, and this is the discussion and potential vote on the fiscal year 2024 school bids. We had discussed numbers 2480-001 to 2480-0017 last week, and Mr. Petronio had gone through them, and it also sent us a packet in regards to all of these proposals. I'm going to give him a minute to speak to them. Last week, we did not vote on these because we wanted to have the opportunity for Ms. Azak to be part of the decision. So, Mr. Petronio?
Good evening. The bound copies you have tonight are the successful bidders for each of the categories. As I explained at the last meeting, these are the same bids we put out either every year or every 3 years, and they're all by low bid. They're all either a service or a product, so they're all bid that way, and whoever has the lowest price wins the bid. So there isn't as if it's a proposal where they propose what they're going to do. I also passed out a little 3-page stapled packet. In there, it shows the other bidders and what their prices were that they bid. So that gives a detail of what other companies were bidding for the products and how we chose the lowest bidder.
Some of the committee members had asked a couple of questions at the last meeting. Do we have any other questions for this meeting? Ms. Azak?
Thank you, Mr. Petronio. So this packet actually helps. After looking at the packet that was given to me, I was questioning a couple of things because it just said awardee, and then I saw the amount of bids. But having this, it makes sense because now I can see all the bids. This is how it was when I was on bid review
Correct,
a couple of years
yes.
ago. So I know it's by law we have to go with the lowest bid, but sometimes the lowest bid isn't always the best. You kind of get, so when we put out the request, like what if someone offers something that the lowest bid doesn't offer, but their bid is a little higher because they offer extra services?
You have two options. One is you can cancel the bid, reject it, and go back out to bid. But now everyone kind of knows what everyone bid already. We actually did that on the refuse, on the dumpsters. We went back out to bid because we weren't happy with the prices. When they first came in, it didn't meet what we really had put out. So we put it back out, and we actually got a lower price from a larger company. So you have that option if there's a bid that comes in, and again, you know of someone that offered better or more. And these types of bids, most of them, low voltage is an hourly wage per hour. Intercom public announcement system services, that's hourly wage. So most of them are hourly wage. Something like the paper products, that's something that, we tell them what type of paper towels, what type of toilet paper we want, and they bid on the product. And again, it's difficult in an area like that for someone to give us more than what we asked for, but if you did find the case, then we would, again, the committee could do that.
Yeah, I mean, those are pretty standard bids as far as receiving an item. I'm thinking more of a service, like for example, just say, I don't know, electrical. So, I'm just curious because there's a huge difference in the bid amounts when you look at them. Huge.
Yes.
So are they all offering the same? And then,
It's the hourly wage that they're offering. Now, if a company is a large corporation, they have employees, and the prevailing wage, which is set by the state, they have to meet, they put out that price. But if it's an owner-operated business and the owner is actually doing the work, he can charge whatever he wants. So a lot of times they'll bid lower on the services and they'll get the contract. We've had that in the past with plumbers and electricians.
Yeah, because you look at some of these numbers, and some of them are almost double. And then the other thing is again, now that it's bid review committee of a whole, so how are we doing this when the bids are read? Are we having the bids read, unsealed? They come in sealed. We go over the bids now that it's a committee of a whole, and then the next committee meeting we go over whatever bids come in.
We'll do, yes, we'll have I guess, the committee of the whole, and again, we'll go over and we'll explain what the bid was for. Again, these are all the standard items, plastic bags, trash bags. These are the standard items. But something that's a little more complicated, we would have either someone from facilities, or if it's myself, explain exactly what the bid is asking for, and then, show you what the bids are, so you know.
Okay.
So we would do that.
Or at least posted when the bids are open, so if they're
Yes.
open maybe before us at one meeting, and then we vote on them in the next?
Sure.
Because I know I've seen them online, opening some of the bids, but we weren't a part of that.
That was right during COVID. Now we're back to opening them in public.
Okay, perfect. I think that answers some of my questions, and then, and these are all, where are we posting these bids?
These bids are posted on our website and at City Hall, and in the, there's a journal that the state puts out.
I was gonna say the state site.
The state site, exactly.
Okay, thank you so much.
Does anyone have any other questions? Mr. Rodriguez?
Thank you. Aldo, 17 bids were put out. Were these all sealed bids, or they were put on, was it combis?
Some were from combis, but the rest that were put out are sealed bids.
How come they weren't put all on combis?
Well, Carl,
Wouldn't that supersede this whole seal bidding process because it's already open on
Yes.
combis?
so for example, paper doesn't matter to us who we get our paper from. But when it comes to like electrical and plumbing services, with our 26 buildings that we have, some of the companies that have worked here, that have been working here for years, they know our buildings. So we have 3 or 4 different electric companies that have won our electrical services bids over the years. So if they're not on combis, then they don't have a chance to bid on it. And then you'll have a brand-new company coming in here. So a project that might have taken 4 hours might take a new company 12 hours. So we wanted to, but those, Carl Walker, our procurement officer, those bids were put back out to bid to the general public. So if the company wasn't already on combis and we had a price, then we put it out to bid, because we wanted to give everyone a chance, as many as possible, to bid on the service or product.
So out of the 17, how many weren't on combis?
1, 2, 3, about 4.
Which one of those?
Going up from the bottom, moving services, the supplemental construction, the waste disposal services was on combis, but then we bid it out to get more bidders, and the lease of general warehouse space.
Okay. Now, on the warehouse, it says no bids, but we still, I mean,
The only one that was no bids was the general warehouse space, and we currently don't require any more than we have, so we just put it out just in case.
so it was just on a renewal, so we didn't need to put that out?
Exactly.
And, all right.
I just have one last question. Mr. Petronio, under food service equipment repair, so Chartwell's doesn't have anything? We service the equipment?
Yes, we have Chartwell's manages our employees and our production of the food, and then we go out to bid for all our equipment repairs.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Homer?
Thank you. Mr. Petronio, the third bid from the end, 0013, the liner and paper supplies. It's listed as Banish Systems. I was just looking at the difference between the top notch and the banners. I didn't know if there's a way to explain how we land on one vendor, one bid versus the other for the difference in cost that's listed there.
On banner. Are you looking at the booklet, or are you looking at the?
sorry, the
Oh.
packet that we received tonight. Sorry about that.
So what was your question again?
I was just looking at, it's listed under the winning bidders, it's banner systems, and then I was just going across the other bids. I was just checking out the different values from the different bids. I was just wondering how we landed on the banner one.
He would have been the lowest, most responsive bidder. Sometimes we'll put out a bid for certain types of, let's say, paper towels that fit our dispensers. And someone will try and bid what they call an equivalent, but they won't work in our dispensers. So that happens quite a bit, especially with soap dispensers.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Sorry.
Ms. Azak?
So for example, like, Top Notch came in at 275, and Banner was at 127.90. So how do we respond to them, even though they were the lowest bidder?
But they might not have been the most responsive. So there was something in their bid that wasn't the most responsive.
So we have it documented in case they come
Yes.
back? Okay.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Any other questions? At this point, we need a motion to accept the bids as presented and award the contracts to each successful bidder.
I make a motion to
Accept the
accept the
bids.
FY 2024 school bids, number 2480-001 through 2480-007.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, we got a... I can't hear. Tim, do you have a question? Well, motion approved. We've received a motion from Ms. Sullivan, properly seconded from Mr. Homer before I heard Mr. Tim Sullivan on Zoom. And can I get a show of hands? I don't know if he'll hear me, but let's do a roll call. Ms. Sullivan?
Yes.
Mr. Homer?
Yes.
Ms. Rivas Mendez?
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Ms. Azak?
Yes.
And Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, meeting adjourned.
I hereby call the special Brockton School Committee meeting to order, it being Tuesday, the 27th of June in the year 2023. We are running just a little bit behind, so I've opened it up. If we could please stand and salute the American flag at this time. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Liberty, justice for all.
I will, I'll establish a quorum. Mr. Sullivan? Mr. Homer?
Here.
Vice Chair Ehlers?
Here.
Mrs. Rivas Mendez?
Here.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Yeah.
Ms. Azak is here as well. Mr. Sullivan, you're here remotely, correct?
Correct.
Okay, great. And I'm here as well. So we've established a quorum. We've called it to order. The agenda tonight, there is 5 agenda items. And again, I just need to read the following into the record. This meeting will be held and will be accessible to the public via Brockton Community Access, Brockton Public Schools website, which is www.bpsma.org. Also YouTube and Comcast channels 98 and also the 1071 HD versions. The public can access this meeting via the following link, which is www.youtube.com/TheBrocktonChannels. Under the special meeting, we have no hearing of visitors tonight. Agenda 2 is discussion and potential vote for FY 2024 school bids, and the number is 2480-0001- number 2480-00117. So it's numbers 1 through 17. Vice Chair Ehlers, you just served as chair of the bid review. The floor is yours.
Correct. I am making a motion to accept the report of the bid subcommittee meeting and approve the bids as presented.
Second.
Motion was on the floor by Mrs. Ayers. It was properly seconded by Mr. Sullivan. I will, because of Mr. Sullivan being remote, I will call the roll. Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
Mr. Homer?
Yes.
Vice Chair Ayers?
Yes.
Mrs. Rivas Mendez?
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Ms. Azak?
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
And then the chair will abstain under the new format. The chair doesn't vote for a bid subcommittee membership. It does hereby pass. Again, Agenda 2. Agenda 3 is discussion and potential vote on the superintendent's recommendation for the Associate Director of Exceptional Learning. Superintendent Thomas, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor. So after an extensive search, and I want to thank school committee members for being a part of the interview process and for your input, and also the community, the teachers, staff, community partners, parents. So we had a recommended candidate for the Associate Director of Exceptional Learning. This position is formerly known as the Director of Special Education. That position was formerly in the BEA. That position was negotiated out of the BEA to be a non-union position, what we felt strongly about should be non-union, because this person oversees so many union members, so we felt it best that it be taken out of the union, which it now is. So after several interviews, and I've met with this person 3 times as well, both candidates that were recommended, and my recommendation is for Jamie D. Langley, who is currently at the Fire Academy, Cambridge, Massachusetts. She's the director of the school. She has an extensive background with students with disabilities. She's properly certified. She was very well received by the community and highly recommended by the community and parents. She is currently now a Brockton resident. She moved here 2 years ago, lives in the community, and just came off as somebody that's very compassionate and but is ready to work and do what needs to be done with students with disabilities and really be very collaborative with us, the leading body of the school department, but also with parents. And it's very important for the leader of the special education department to be very collaborative with parents because of the students' needs and to make sure that they all understand the IEP process, and which is a very difficult process for some people to navigate, pretty much most people to navigate. So to have somebody that has that care and compassion, and we know that, in my opinion, can really connect with the community, and be able to keep them involved and be part of the process with them as we educate their child. I highly recommend her to be the new Associate Director of Exceptional Learning, and I can take any questions, but obviously this is an approval of the school committee. This is one of the positions that has to be approved by the school committee, so that is my recommended candidate.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. Any questions for the superintendent relative to what he just articulated to us? Mr. Sullivan, since you're remote, did you have any questions?
No, I didn't, Mayor. I'm all set.
Thank you, Tim. Mrs. Rivas Mendez, please.
Hi. So I just want to reiterate exactly what Mike Thomas just said. One thing that we talked about when we're talking about the special education department and restructuring, it's not necessarily just compliance, which that's a huge forte that the special education department has, is compliance. It's also what is best practices. As you know, the road changed to exceptional learning. That includes our gifted students, which I think is amazing that we're looking at that too, the brilliancy that we have in the community. And I personally, we all had the opportunity to interview these candidates, and from my understanding, only 4 of us made it. I was one of those persons, and I just want to say, not only was she relational, but one thing that for me just like shocked me was we talk a lot about evaluators being bilingual or multilingual, just because, as we know, there could be a language instead of special education per se. And when asked that question, she mentioned how we can use the people we have and train them when it comes to cultural differences. A lot of time we talk about language, but there's a lot of cultural differences that we just don't understand because we're not in the culture or we're not educated by the culture. And personally, that had me step back a little bit because, you know, culture, as we know, is just, even the way you're expressing yourself right now, Mike, in your face, right? Like, I could find that offensive, but for you, it's just, no, that's not offensive. That's just my face, you know? So things like that. So I thought that was very important that I really wanted to add, because evaluating our students from preschool level all the way up and having that data is going to be very, very important. And I know that's part of the restructuring, that data analysis. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Rivas Mendez. Any additional, Mr. Homer, please.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to thank the other school committee members for the time that they spent doing the interview process, and I feel unfortunate that I wasn't able to be a part of that process, but I do respect the amount of time you put into screening the candidates and meeting with them, and thank you for your time helping with that process.
Thank you, Mr. Homer. Any other questions or comments at this time? Thank you.
So we need a motion to approve, to allow me to hire her. Pretty much, we need a motion for that.
I make
Motion.
a motion
To
to approve Associate Director of Exceptional Learning for Jamie Langley.
So
I
motion on the
second
floor.
that.
Okay. So good second. There's a motion on the floor made by Mrs. Sullivan. It was properly seconded by Mrs. Rivas Mendez. Again, because we have a member that's remote, I'll have to call the roll. Mrs. Sullivan.
Yes.
Mr. Homer.
Abstain.
Vice Chair Ayers.
Yes.
Mrs. Rivas Mendez.
Yes.
Mr. Rodriguez.
Yes.
Ms. Azak.
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan, remotely, please.
Yes.
And the chair is a yes as well, so it passes. Thank you. And the minutes will reflect Mr. Homer's abstaining. We now will go on to the next agenda item, which is other business. Is there any other business before us this evening? Superintendent, any other business that you're aware of?
We didn't have to bring up anything from facilities, correct?
I think I made a suggestion at our last meeting that we might want to try and reconvene facilities before our July 11th meeting. We were going to try and aim for like a 5 o'clock start time for that and give us about an hour before we have our next scheduled school committee meeting.
And that's the 11th of July? It is, okay.
Yes, I believe July 11th.
Any objections on that if we meet an hour, as Mr. Homer just said? So we'll work with Melinda, and duly noted. We'll take care of that. Any other business? Ms. Azak, please.
So I'm not sure if we put it under new business, but we had made a recommendation to look into,
Phones?
sure, we can do that.
Is that the?
No, I was talking about a building. We were going to try to
Oh, yeah.
look into
that's-
that. So if we could try to do it for the next meeting,
Correct.
if we had to go into executive session to
So
dis-
the committee, we talked about going to executive session to discuss how we approach bringing another location for a possible bus depot, warehouse, something that would service all the needs of the school department with facilities, like a total operations center, if we could discuss that in executive session so we can talk about our recommendation and how we move forward on. So I know that they sent us back to the drawing board, so,
City Council?
yes.
Yes. If nobody objects, I know Attorney Mello was still here. I just wanted to ask you a form on that, Peter, if you don't mind. So the purpose of executive session would be so that it doesn't create a detrimental
can take that.
ability to our negotiations going forward. So in your legal opinion, we would have full authority to go into executive session relative to what Superintendent just said?
Well, so that's the question, and, you know, that can be context-specific. The purpose would be Purpose 6, which does allow you to discuss things like, you know, value of a particular property or potential lease terms and the like. And it can be a little nuanced. You know, I think fundamentally, I'm not, on balance, I'm comfortable that we probably could do that. I was just hearing about it
Just
kind
to
of
fine-tune it a bit so
extemporaneously.
to make sure it meets the parameters.
I want to make sure that my understanding of the context and circumstances is, I'm not missing anything, basically. But I think, based on what I'm hearing, I'm pretty comfortable that we can invoke Purpose 6 for that purpose, but I'd like to just confirm that based on, I'll talk with Mike offline.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Any questions for the attorney?
No, it was just if we could put it on for the next meeting.
We gotta stop his clock now. He's billable by the hour, Joyce. We gotta, you can go home now, Attorney Mello. You can go
We're
home.
all set. No, it just
Thank
as
you,
long as we
Peter.
could do it on the next meeting, because, times are ticking, and
Right.
it's costing us a lot of money to pay these leases, and it's gonna take time.
Yes.
So,
So we'll put it on, Mrs. Campbell, we'll put it on the next docket. Thank you. Next agenda item on that.
And the other thing I have is we need to schedule a meeting, so we give parents enough time to discuss a proposed cell phone policy and a proposed uniform policy. So I think we need to figure out everybody's schedule. We want to make sure we give parents enough notice before and enough time, but it has to be a policy. It's going to be a policy meeting, so it's posted, which is a committee of the whole, and then maybe start the meeting and adjourn to the auditorium to pretty much hear from parents and then come
We're
back.
thinking, Mike, that would be August would be too late. We're thinking
Yeah,
July.
we'd have to do it in July,
Okay.
100%. Yeah.
Everything. I think that's.
We probably could put it at the end, like the last thing on, can policy go after? Because everything's earlier, right? So there's 5 o'clock is facilities, and 6 is school committee. So then we can maybe,
Is that 2 weeks from tonight? Yes. 2 weeks from tonight?
July 11, 2 weeks.
Does that get enough time, you think, 2 weeks from tonight? Yeah.
We probably could, Peter, would we be able to keep it as a school committee agenda item, or would have to break into policy subcommittee?
Now, what's this?
So we're exploring a new cell phone policy and a new uniform policy. We need to have discussions on that and then present that to the community and provide them a forum for feedback. So we just want to make sure that we have a policy sub, which is a committee of the whole, but if we have a meeting, a full school committee meeting, should we do a policy meeting after, or should we just make it an agenda item for the full school committee?
I don't think there are any formal rules that prohibit you from putting it on as an agenda item before the full committee, notwithstanding the fact that it's pending before the subcommittee. There's no, prohibition on that. I think the school committee can take up any matter it wants to take up at any time, even if a matter is before the subcommittee. With that said, if circumstances dictate that it's more prudent to subject it to a subcommittee vote before it goes to the full committee, you have the latitude, I think, either way, but I don't have any concerns about that.
Well, I think, maybe we do list it as a subcommittee, as a policy subcommittee, and then we can see where, maybe then we can schedule a full school committee meeting if we have to do sometime earlier than the August meeting. We can think about that.
Yeah, and you want to go belt and suspenders, you could always frame it as a joint meeting of both the subcommittee and the full committee, just for efficiency purposes. I don't see a problem with that either.
The superintendent, can we have Jess Hodges and then Suzanne McCormick, communications on the city side, work on doing a roll call, get it out on, we really want to get it out into the
Yeah,
mainstream
we're
if
going
it's
to do
2
that.
weeks from tonight.
And we will do also, we will send out a text
Yep.
and also put on the website, so.
Yep. City site, school
Yeah,
site,
in
Facebook
Friday's
pages.
packet, I'll put a draft, a proposed draft for everybody to review before we put it out as so you can review it, what a draft is, and make changes before we make it, bring it to the community.
So everybody is good on Mr. Homer, please. Thank you,
one more-
Attorney Mello.
Just thinking of one more point, I don't know if I misunderstood Superintendent Thomas, but if we moved to speak with the public or meet with the public, is the auditorium going to be available, or is that not going to be available
Oh,
that
good
night?
question. Melinda, can you check that? Because we would maybe, what's that? We'll have to check. I don't think they're starting earlier than the 11th. Yeah, if not, we'll go to the red
Okay,
calf.
yeah,
Green calf, I'm sorry. Yep, good point. Because we can set up a PowerPoint and everything in there, and we can actually have the tables folded up and set it up like a, you know, like we have for graduation, and set it up for like a stadium seating, so we'd have plenty of room. Thank you, though, for pointing that out. You're right, because they're working on the light and the sound.
Go to Ms. Azak, followed by Mr. Rodriguez, please.
Superintendent, were we able to find out which surrounding school already has this policy? Was it East Bridgewater, Bridgewater?
I checked them. They didn't have it. The only one I was able to see was the one we went and visited.
I'll have to check. It was,
Yeah, I
it was
mean, I asked the
actually,
super of East Bridgewater, and, I mean, they have a no cell phone policy, like have them off and away, but they don't use bags. So the only one we have seen so far is Springfield Central. There are a few other districts, I don't know, maybe Kathy looked into that, I think.
I think Milford, because they, Desi's the one that interviewed Milford, because that's how we found out that Desi was recommending for all schools to start thinking about a cell phone policy. I mean, the uniform's something different, but the cell phone policy. But they went out and interviewed more than, I don't even think Springfield Tech was part of their interview process. It was Chicopee, Milford, and a couple others.
And I think that if we decide to put something in place, if you change a policy, then I believe the Department of Ed is going to make grant funding available for us to be able to put this in place and pay for a good amount of what we need to do.
so we'll be discussing cell phone and?
Uniform.
Uniform, okay.
Yep, so I'll have a draft of policy for each one. I took what Springfield was using and gave it to Attorney Paige Tobin, so I should be getting that. I'll check with her tomorrow so we can get that back, just to make sure it doesn't violate anybody's civil rights, or, you know, so it's in line with the law, and then I'll put that in Friday's packet, again, as a draft, so it's open for any edits from the committee. Because it's actually your policy, it is, because the handbook is a policy, so the handbooks are your policy, so, so if there's edits, you know, feel free to, and we can change and alter them as we go before it's voted on.
Mr. Rodriguez, followed by Mrs. Rivas Mendez, please.
Thank you. Can we have a rep from Yonders be
Yes.
present? Or, and then also,
Yep.
if we can have some samples of the actual pouch
Yep.
and the locking mechanism, so the families can, parents can actually
Aldo, that's you, right? You met with him? I was unable to
see
meet,
how
so
the
will you
product
reach out to him, make sure they have a rep and plenty of pouches here to make sure they can give a display to families, and also for the members that haven't seen it yet. Yeah, perfect. They can show a video to the community and also bring the bags and give an example of how they lock and unlock, which would be very helpful. Thanks.
Anything else, Mr. Rodriguez? Mrs. Rivas Mendez, please.
The student handbook, is this going to be ready for this meeting?
The handbook is ready.
Okay.
It's still in draft form for you, you know, you still have to approve the handbooks for 2023-24. However, those 2 pages are appendixes, because right now, the handbook is the current handbook that has any legal changes that you have to look at, but to change, the current dress code and current cell phone policy are in there. And then you'll have 2 addendums, which will be a proposed new cell phone policy and a proposed new uniform policy. You would have to vote on to take those, the current policies out and replace them with the new ones.
Okay.
So you wouldn't be voting on the final handbook until August.
The end
Yes.
of August, when
Yep.
we usually do.
Yes,
Okay.
and now that now that they're all online, you don't, like, in the old days, we had to approve them by like May, so you could print them all. But now you don't have to print, you have to have them handy by print, enough copies, just in case somebody needs them, but legally, they just have to be placed online, which makes it much easier to be translated quicker, and then we print them to make sure that, you know, anybody that needs them, print them. We have enough copies at each building, but we're not copying thousands of them anymore. It's basically all done on the website.
I also wonder if this would be a good meeting to go over the student handbook. I've received a lot of just confusion of certain policies that are in the handbook from student perspective. And if this meeting is the meeting to have student feedback
Yeah,
on
'cause I think-
specific handbooks.
It's been recommended, and I'm going to talk to, I'll bring, there's a recommendation from the students I meet with on a regular basis, high school students, there's a recommendation to adjust our attendance policy.
Yep.
So they gave me that last Friday. I sent it to Desi, because Desi has their you have to, I think, you have to be present 93% of the time, otherwise you're considered chronically absent. So we just want to make sure, I think we do need a new updated attendance policy that makes more sense for kids. And we just want to make sure it's in compliance with the chronically absent, with Desi. So they're looking at it now, and then what we'll do is bring a draft of that as well.
Yeah, I think, going over the student handbook with parents somehow, if it's this meeting or a meeting before school, because I just have heard a lot of confusion of not really understanding, especially with if it could happen with the freshman class specifically, so they see it, because one thing is giving them the handbook, right? Like, we check that box, but being intentional, are you understanding, what you're expected when you come to this building?
Yeah, and
these are
that's
the
what,
things.
that's why we're hoping to, we're planning now how to start the school year differently.
Okay.
And I hope to come to you in July and say, the way we should open Brockton High is I think when I came here, and the mayor, and I think Mr. Rodriguez and Joyce maybe, is the freshmen came by themselves the first day of school with no juniors, sophomores, juniors, or seniors, and really help them
Explore the
just get
halls.
used to the school and just explore the hall, and then just really talk, they can have conversations with their teachers without the rush of trying to get through the hallways with, 3,000 other kids here, and you can spend much more time in detail talking about the things in the handbook, talk about study skills, organization, where you can get help, like how to find information for clubs, sports, how to get help from an adjustment counselor. I think a full day is needed for them.
So would that be part of their 180 days? And then the upper class has to make that day up?
I think we'd be able to figure something out with the Department of Education, because they really want to spend a lot more time on SEL next year. So I think we'd be able to do that one day with the freshmen and the sophomores. To seniors, it doesn't matter because they get out early.
Yeah.
But we have that question into the department as well. But you're right.
Thanks.
Mike, could we even consider, I get it for high school because it worked well when we went to high school, right? But could we even consider that for sixth graders going to middle school?
I'll ask.
Because I know a lot of sixth graders, when they go to middle school, you got the seventh and eighth graders. It wouldn't be a bad idea if we could do that.
Yeah, I'll ask the
I think
Department
so.
of Ed as well.
Okay, yeah. Can't hurt to ask. Any other questions for Superintendent relative to anything we discussed tonight? Mr. Sullivan, you're remote. Do you have any questions for the Superintendent?
No, I don't. I'm all set.
Thank you. Entertain a motion to adjourn at this time.
Motion to adjourn.
Do you have a question?
Prior to the,
Yep.
I know the superintendent has made proposals with the Green Building, the Champion, across the district, but this body still hasn't officially voted that, and we do have to put that so this body can vote on all those changes officially, because this is the governing body of the district, and we do have to take that measure up, because I've been getting a lot of questions from staff and community members that how come the school committee hasn't approved all of these changes yet. So I think we need to formally take that measure up.
Attorney Mello, I don't know if it would be you, but if we could, for that July, it's going to be a busy meeting, July 11th, but I concur with what Mr. Rodriguez said. We have to button it up legally as the legislative body of the school committee's district, so we should do that if you don't mind working with us on that. So again, July 11th will be a busy night, but it's a good night to get, thank you, Tony, to get it all squared away. Ms. Azak, please.
We still haven't done the evaluation. Isn't there a deadline of July to get the superintendent's evaluation?
Yes, we have to get that on the books as well. I was going to put that under other business, but we've got a lot of other business.
Even if we have to do a separate when's the deadline? I thought it was July.
30th, I believe, but I can double check. I think it's
But
the
again,
30th.
we're July 1st this weekend, so it's summer months. People are traveling just to review the evidence.
Yes,
to get it
Dr.
completed.
Spalding reached out to me last week, and so I'm following up with her.
Okay. Yeah, those were the two things, that and the voting I was going to bring up, so thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chair, I mean, not that we want to have any more meetings, but if we need a special, you can absolutely call a special for that. We'll just get a feel we'll get a feel from the committee on when people are going to be away and vacations and stuff, but
Absolutely.
we have time on that. Any other matters before?
Question about the evaluation. Because he's a long-term contract, can legally you skip a year? Does that work that way, or every year we have to?
Year to year.
It's a year-to-year evaluation?
I think that's what DESI requires, but we can have Karen double check on that for
I
us.
thought Desi told us when they came before us, when we signed the memo with them, but we can check.
Because it's the same goals. Don't you have the same goals?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, so I think we should check that,
we
if
could-
it's year
if
to
we could,
year,
it'd be
or
better
if
for
it's.
everybody, yeah.
Yeah, because it's late, like July 1st, July 30th, yeah. I mean, to get the deadline, we usually have it done by we try to have it done by Memorial Day weekend. Yeah.
My last training with Mass, superintendents that are in a long-term contract, it's at the will of this body if we wanted to do it, skip a year. So it's at the will of this body if that's what we want to do.
I concur with that, although let's just get it dotted with Desi, because I thought Desi told us they wanted it year to
I think the
year.
only thing you can skip the actual evaluation.
Yeah.
But I believe you have to submit ratings every year. I think that's what they told
Okay.
us. So I don't think you have to go through the whole process of the long form. But I think you do ratings have to be submitted to the department every year.
So we'll get an answer tomorrow.
Yeah, and I also put a call into Mass because at the last meeting that Mr. Rodriguez and I were at, there's also a better format than the one that we've been using. And so if we can skip a year and use a much easier evaluating tool, that would help as well, because that was somewhat cumbersome, I think, for all of us last year. So I'm on it.
Good, thank you. Anything else before us tonight? Again, there was a motion made to adjourn, right? Was it seconded? Second. Motion was made by Mrs. Sullivan. It was properly seconded by Mr. Rodriguez. Again, I'll have to call the roll. Mrs. Sullivan?
Yes.
Mr. Homer?
Yes.
Vice Chair Ayers?
Yes.
Mrs. Rivas Mendez?
Yes.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes.
Ms. Azak?
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan, remotely, please?
Yeah.
And the chair's a yes. Drive careful. We are hereby adjourned. I also want to thank BCA. It's a special meeting. Thank you, everybody behind the camera, for coming tonight. Thank you.